the computer. From the studios in Fairfax City, we're very humble and grateful that Miles Brown accepted our invitation to our show. Miles is an Australian thereminist, composer, and experimental artist, working with a ethereal interface on his gesture-controlled instrument. He combines unique emotional landscape that query the relation between space, sound, electronics, and the body. Miles, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Mario.
So, Miles, the first question, so more than an interview, it's going to be a conversation about music. Feel free to interrupt me if you want to ask some questions as well. But the first thing, so for those who new to your music, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's Miles Brown. I'm a theremin player and composer from Melbourne, Australia. Originally from Tasmania, Hobart, Tasmania, and play the theremin mostly. I also play synth and bass guitar and a whole bunch of other stuff, but mostly my musical life is about playing the theremin, which is a musical instrument that you play without touching. You move your hands in the air to play it.
Gotcha. Yeah, we'll go into more detail later. So with everything that is going on this year with the pandemic and people dying, how you doing? How's it affected your life, your country, the ability to compose music? Everything have changed.
Yeah, very much so. 2020 was a year in Melbourne where we were in lockdown for a large part of the year, like many months of hard lockdown, as in not able to go out of the house after 8 p.m, curfew, and you know, masks and craziness. Our government here put us into very intense lockdown, maybe the hardest, definitely in Australia. So I was, you know, in my studio a lot more, so I actually got quite a lot of music done. And also I work here in Melbourne as a music curator, helping other people to make records, producing records. So we were kind of helping a lot of other people to continue their art practices, but that was great. But most of my friends who were making a living from music were obviously had to really change their lives, and for many of them, we're still in a situation where they can't perform live and make money from that. So it's obviously been very intense for everybody.
Do you have like a sort of a studio at home where you can write and compose and help other artists as well?
Yeah, I do. So, I mean, the wonders of the internet, we can do a lot of work for people over online, and I've got a studio at home where I can record and produce stuff. So, yeah, just doing it, you know, in a new way over the internet, without sitting in a room with people. You know, it has its challenges, but we find a way.
I got you. So let's go back to the beginning. Were you born like in a musical family? How you learn? I don't know. All the people start fine. It was a piano at home, and my mom played the guitar or whatever. How were you? How were you starting music?
Yeah, I mean, yes. My father was a huge prog rock freak and played a lot of prog rock when I was a kid. One of my earliest family home movies is of me riding a little bike with Hocus Pocus by Focus playing in the background, and he's a huge Yes fan as well. So definitely that was in the air from the start. Yeah. Yeah, I suppose I actually discovered the theremin through my father as well, because he was a electrical engineer, and I was discovering analog synth music and listening to a whole lot of different kinds of music that used analog synths from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And he was like, oh, you know, there's this instrument that was around before the synthesizer. Bob Moog built these things before he built the synthesizer, and it's called a theremin, and you play it without touching. And I was like, wow, that sounds cool. And he's like, I've got the plans to build one from an old, you know, science magazine. So we built my first theremin together, and that's how I got into the theremin.
That's great, man. That's great upbringing. Can you elaborate on how the theremin works? Is it difficult to learn? How difficult to put one together? How expensive they are? Blah blah blah.
Sure. Well, my first theremin, which I actually have here, was actually homemade, built from a cake tin and two sheet metal and a bit of wood on the bottom. So, you know, actually, I think it cost us about $30 to make this. And it's actually like a theremin controlled ring modulator. It has 2 pitch aerials rather than a volume and a pitch. So you can make them yourself. They are essentially just noise machines if you do that though. And in order to play musically on a theremin, you're really best off to buy a Moog theremin. And Bob Moog built theremins originally, and of course is very famous for the synthesizer, but the Moog theremins are the only ones that are classically stable, particularly the Moog Etherwave Pro, which is the theremin that I play. And it is a challenging instrument to learn. You kind of have to learn how to be very still and concentrate. You move your hands in the air. So you have 2 aerials. One aerial is for pitch. So when you move your hand closer to your body, you get low notes. When you go up close to the aerial, you get high notes. And the other hand is for volume. So when you lift your hand up, it goes louder. When you have your hand down near the aerial, it goes soft. So you're sort of playing the air. Yeah. It's an electromagnetic relationship between your body and the theremin aerials, and it's basically a capacitive circuit that you're creating. But essentially, you are the instrument. Your body and every movement of your body affects the way that theremin works. So if you can imagine it like you're playing a guitar or a piano that changes shape every time you move. So if you move closer, the notes get closer together. If you move back, the notes get further apart. When you breathe, they do this. When your heart beats, they do this. So you're listening to your body, and your ears and your hands are working together. And so it's very much about being able to go into a sort of meditative state in order to play the theremin. You sort of try to stand very still, and you try and imagine what you want it to do, and you try and get a bit of a melding happening between what's happening in your mind and what's happening in your ears and what's happening in your hands. So for me, coming from a background, originally I was a bass guitarist and really loved playing metal and hard rock and punk stuff, and I had the theremin just on stage as like a fun thing to muck around with in instrumental breaks. Yep. And then as I got more into it, I realized I was really, you know, completely obsessed with this instrument, and it was this totally different thing. Playing the bass is all about moving and building energy and pushing the band forward, and playing the theremin is about being very still and trying to move nothing except your fingers. So I had to learn to calm down a bit. How long does it take to sort of become proficient, if you will? Not an expert, but it's a 6-month process. It's 100 hours of classes, or I would say it would be the same as learning a violin. So, you know, learning a violin takes a while, and because similar to a violin, you're learning how to create the pitches yourself. Like, you don't have a fretboard, you don't have a keyboard. You have to learn the very pure relationships between tones and semitones, and then you have to create them in the air. You have to train your ear very, very carefully, and so that's part of it. But also just learning. There is a way to tune the theremin to your body so that you can have predictable intervals between your hand movements, and that takes a bit of time as well. So I actually went overseas and studied in order to get that part of it right. Okay. And are there a wide range of pricing and models, right? What's the low end or high end? I mean, there's $1,000, $5,000, $300. Yeah. So the lowest end of a theremin that you could play music on, you know, that would be pleasant for people to listen to, is probably around $400 US for like a Moog Etherwave theremin. And then the theremin that I have is the Etherwave Pro, which I got for 1,500 Australian dollars back in 2005, but now they're worth $22,000 because they only built a small number of them. Yeah. But that's the classical step. That's the sort of the standard if you want to, you know, jazz or classical or like very precise playing. And then there's some other ones, the T-Vox Tour, which is a Russian theremin, which is fabulous as well, but very rare. Thankfully, Moog are about to bring out this this new theremin called the Clarivox Centennial, which is about to come out any day now, and that is being we're all hoping that's going to be another professional grade theremin. So that's going to be about 4,000 Australian dollars. But yeah, I mean, it's like a guitar. You can have a cheap guitar and it'll sound cheap. If you can spend a bit more money, it'll sound fantastic.
I gotcha. So, and you use the theremin on all the projects that you work for yourself and for the other people that contribute? Do other bands, other groups in Australia or people all over the world call you? Hey, I'm thinking about the theremin to put that particular piece for a soundtrack or electronic music that I'm building for that particular scene that's going to be like a horse in a suspended. So a lot of people call you because I imagine there are not that many people. Well, there are not millions of people playing the theremin in the world, right?
Yes, that's what happens. I mean, that's kind of what a thereminist's professional life really is. You sort of you do your own thing and wait for someone to come along who needs that weird thing that you do. It's obviously not going to go on every record that's ever made, but and it does. You're right. It does actually often. It's often for film stuff or guest appearances on records where they want some kind of a horror situation.
Yeah.
But also
suspense movie and people like Goblin and I don't know, Claudio Simonetti and all those people. And kind of, it doesn't have to be a horror movie, suspense movie, if you will, electronic music movie, where that, so, theremin could apply to, a scene or a commercial or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So can you elaborate on how the Night Terrors came together as a trio?
Yeah, well, the Night Terrors was originally myself and two other guys from Tasmania. We were all the Hobart guys, Tim Piccone and Yanto Kelly. Yep. And we were living in Melbourne, and we just actually friends and got together to have a jam. The music scene in Hobart that we came from was very much an art rock scene, sort of punky art rock scene, and we had no music industry there. So we were all very free to experiment with music, and we all used to compete with each other to try and be more original. There's no point trying to get on the radio. There wasn't any radio to get on. So we had this great little scene down in Hobart where we were all trying to outdo each other with the wackiest idea for a band that we could possibly come up with. And some amazing bands that came out of that time, like the Sea Scouts and Little Ugly Girls and all these fantastic art rock bands. And so when we got together, we just settled on the combination of instruments that we just happened to play. I was playing bass, and I had at this point started to think more about being serious as a theremin player. And Tim Piccone was a great prog rock keyboard player, and Yanto Kelly was a fabulous, very experimental and very driving rock drummer. So we just started jamming, and it just came together really quickly into this, the early version of the Night Terrors was quite heavy synth rock, kind of very high energy with, theremin as one of the, almost the lead instrument. And everybody at the time, post-rock was happening in Melbourne, and people really liked it. So we became quite popular pretty fast, and made a couple of EPs and had a great time. And then our drummer went to live in Paris because he followed his heart to Paris, as you do. And so we stopped for a little while. and then there was a few other versions of the band, and people came and left. And as it just continued, it ended up being the only original person, and that's when I started to really think, okay, well, this could be a band where we can have the theremin as the lead instrument and try and build everything else around it.
And my understanding is Back to Zero was the first album, right, in 2009, but
yeah, we did 2 EPs before that, yeah.
But it took a while to, I think, be released in the United States and Europe many, many years after, so, right?
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, I mean, I think actually Back to Zero, which, is the first album, that was made almost as a demo, actually, because we had started making the record, and a couple of people had left the band. Marika Barden, our keyboard player, was having a baby, and so I was sort of left with this half-made record, which I was just playing around with at home. And you know, before that, I had been the bass player, and I had been playing theremin, and that was it. And then I was like, oh, well, I might have a go at like playing some keyboards as well, just because I don't really have, the band isn't really together. It was just me and Yanto, the drummer. And so I ended up, you know, doing a whole lot of extra work on this record, and that's sort of where Back to Zero became this prog rock opus.
Gotcha.
Actually, I was just listening to that record. I was working in a bar in Melbourne, and I was listening to it during the day when I was cleaning the glasses in this bar. And my friend Cody Abrams was in the bar. It was his bar, and he was like, "What's this?" And I said, "Oh, nothing. It's just like this stuff I'm working on." And he was like, "Oh, I really love this." So he convinced me to release it, and
Good
it
for,
wasn't
good for him, man.
Yeah.
Good for him. Yeah, you need to thank the guy. You need to buy him a beer, man.
Yes.
Otherwise, we wouldn't have it. And then Spiral Vortex came after that, correct?
Yes, that's right.
What's the time frame between the first one and the second one? It's a couple of years.
So we made Back to Zero in 2008. It came out in 2009, and then we immediately went on tour. So we got to play. I went to Europe and toured around, played with Goblin and Melt Banana and those kinds of bands, and and then we came back to Australia, and we actually toured for a couple of years. Did a big gig with Lou Reed at the Sydney Opera House, and the band started to really, you know, change from being an underground band that no one knew about to something that people knew about. And so we sort of started working on Spiral Vortex straight away, and we wanted to go in a more electronic direction. We were learning how to use our analog synthesizers in the way they were intended by the original, you know, the 80s future looking synth designers. And so I think we made Spiral Vortex in about 2011, but it took a few years for it to come out. So it came out in 2014. Yeah.
Gotcha. Great music. I was able to, this weekend when I was putting together this interview, I listened to those 3 albums, and then your stuff as a solo, the stuff in backup. This is great music. Different, right? It's a niche, right? It will apply to certain people like electronic music, you know, they will like your stuff. But you need to have an open mind, I suppose, even if you like pop, right? It's good to, for me at least, it's good to have a wide variety, you know, and an open taste, right? If you like only Italian food, right, the world's crazy, right? You're boring. Right? If you like food, right, you need to try different restaurants, right? And then pick what you like. So I do the same with music. And then I believe that some year later, the city of Melbourne commissioned you guys, I think in 2014, to use the grand, I think at the largest grand pipe organ, right? That's what the third album came together.
That's right. Yes. So we actually, that happened from, we went to Europe, we played with Goblin for the first time in Germany, and we came back to Australia, and we were approached by the city of Melbourne, who wanted us to do a project with their organ. And it's the biggest pipe organ in the Southern Hemisphere. You know, it's amazing. It's like playing a building. Like it's you know, 5 stories high. It's got 10,000 pipes. It's you know, it's like an orchestra in one instrument. So of course, as a very keyboard oriented band, we were super excited, and we were allowed to work with it over summer for quite a few months, just like it was our rehearsal room. So we had a fabulous time writing music with this thing. And then the people who ran Melbourne Music Week, which is the music festival here, came to have a listen to what we were doing. And when we were talking to them, they said, "Oh, we saw you play with Goblin. Do you have a contact for the band Goblin?" And we said yes. So they brought Goblin out to Australia to play for the first time. So when we did that show, we were supporting Goblin, who also used the organ for their show, which was awesome. Amazing to see Simonetti playing, you know, all those classic organ parts from the Goblin records on our organ.
How,
And
how,
then,
yeah.
oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And then basically we made a record of that music, and that was what ended up becoming that Parva Nocturnus record.
Yeah, the Power Nocturnus. How big? I mean, when that particular organ was built? What the history behind the stuff? Because
yeah, well, I can tell you that now because my job now is to look after that organ and program artists to do projects with it. So I ended up becoming the organ curator. It was it was built in 1874, I believe. So it's been around for a long time, 150-ish years, and it's, you know, when Australia was going through the gold rush, there's a lot of money coming from gold, mining gold in the early, you know, colonial years of Australia, white Australia. That's when the organ was built in the town hall. And yeah, it's one of these interesting, you know, colonial things. It's quite a troubled, politically interesting thing, so we do a lot of projects with it now, trying to look at it a different way. But it's cool. It's a lovely thing.
And we're for people that I don't know what's located, but is it like an inside a sort of a cathedral? It have a lot of symbolism, Christianism, church type related stuff. Like you would think in an organ, right, where you know, people would play church, you know, when they're celebrating mass, that kind of stuff, or is have no connotation, no religious.
It doesn't have religious. It's a civic space. It's a town hall, so it's not a religious instrument. Most of the other pipe organs in Melbourne are in churches. So this is an interesting one. It's not really about, you know, being terrified by God. It's more like being terrified by the Melbourne City Council.
I got you.
Yeah. But it's a great thing, and a lot of people don't know it's there. So we were really, and of course for our music, it absolutely worked so easily for us to, you know, do our sort of spooky, unusual thing with this spooky, unusual instrument.
Well, I'm glad that you know, you're commissioned by the city of Melbourne or whatever, you know, institution to take care of that and maintain it, and you know, now you have, you know, a free sort of instrument at your disposal. You know, you can make a lot of regular try different things with that. And I also noticed a video that you guys put together. I don't know exactly which particular song, but there is one lady, I think she's playing, and then you are with one guy, and then you or so. That's, you know, I don't know how many views have received on YouTube and how many email you have received, but it's very, very well done, creepy, and you know.
Oh yeah, thank you.
You know what I'm talking about, right? So it's
on a video, yes.
Yeah, it's and there are not that many videos of you guys on YouTube and other. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think actually the Night Terrors, we never really focused very much on videos, and we were more making records and touring. And back, it's just a funny thing. Like back then, it was more expensive, and we were too poor, and so we just didn't really do it. You're right. There's not very many videos of us on the internet. No.
Yeah, like 2 or 3. And also, I think the band tour in some festival. They really conducted the Vivid Live, Bracara Extreme Fest, Deno Valley Swing Fest. Are there? Do you know any of those are sort of YouTube platform that somebody can listen to, or they were never recorded? The festivals of all.
Yeah, there's definitely recordings of the Vivid Live thing at the Sydney Opera House of our set, and also I got to play with Lou Reed and Laurie Anderson and a whole bunch of other people, and there's a recording of that. And then I'm not so sure about those festival performances in Europe. Not sure.
Well, we need to do some research trying to search stuff. Is it fair to say that a lot of works geared towards Gothic or electronic tendencies, if you will? I don't know if that's a good way to label that, your kind of music.
Look, it's definitely been described that way, and I know we have lots of fans and people who like our music in those communities, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, originally, Back to Zero was essentially a prog rock record, really.
Yeah.
But when we toured it in Europe, people thought that we were a goth band. I think it's got to do with what I look like. Like, I'm 6'8", I don't have any hair. I kind of look like Nosferatu, and playing the theremin, people just jump immediately to those horror connotations. You know, sometimes you've got to lean into those things. If in someone, you know, the whole John Waters thing, if you've got a long neck, you know, wear a skivvy. If you're fat, eat 10 pies. Like, you know, take the thing that people can criticize you for and make it your superpower. So you know, I think, and also it's fun. It's fun to be theatrical. So definitely when we did Palva Nocturnus, that was when those audiences really started to love our music.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't mind. Like, it's niche music, as you say, and it's meant to be an acquired taste. It's meant to be I like to think of the Night Terrors as like a secret that your friends share with each other, and it's not for everybody. Yeah.
It's a stupid question. Is it now, you know, being who you are and with the background, is it difficult for you to, you know, get a date, or the ladies are scared of you, or I don't know, maybe it works the other way around. Maybe they want to go out with you.
I would say that it probably evens out to normal.
Like, this guy is too scary for me, the music that he listens. Oh, wow, he's, you know, 6K popular, you know, doing, you know, gothic electronic music. On a date.
I would say I can't really comment because I don't know what it's like to not be me. But I definitely have lots of friends in those communities now, and you know, you definitely, you know, we enjoy visiting goth clubs when we go overseas, and but you know, I think these days things are people are much more open-minded now, and you know,
yeah.
There's a big connection now between classical music and techno, and a big connection between film music and rock, and things weren't. People are just, I think, much more diverse listeners now. So
absolutely, yeah.
It always surprises me who is interested in our music.
Yeah. It's with respect to the Night Terrors album, are there available on vinyl as well, or just CDs or downloadable?
Yeah, it's all on vinyl, and actually, I think that you know, our initial Back to Zero came out on CD and was pressed 3 times on CD, and then it was really only when Homeless Records in Melbourne reissued it on double vinyl that our band became really popular, and we never thought that would make a big difference. But of course, there's a huge audience of vinyl collectors in the world, and they love unusual music. So for us, it was a perfect combination. And Luke Fraser, who's our graphic designer and does all our album covers, of course, he'd always wanted us to go to vinyl so that we could see his artwork bigger. Yeah, I think just the whole coloured vinyl, you know, Homeless did beautiful gatefold covers for our records, and it went crazy. And so that really gave it a new lease of life to the band. And honestly, in the last 4 years where we haven't played very much or made any new music, because it's circulating on vinyl, the band seems to be getting more and more popular. So without vinyl, we would be probably not doing it.
Yeah, like you see in the back, and then, well, I own a house and I have 4 different floors. I have a lot of vinyl. I mean,
cool.
and CDs, and you know, vinyl, CDs, you know, digital files, whatever. But vinyl, the sound is unbelievable. Plus the chords, you know, the graphic design that you have for it's very interesting. So it's
oh yeah, and I've become a huge vinyl collector as well because of our interest when we moved to putting out records, and it's, you know, very enjoyable. I suppose also because our music's been embraced by the horror soundtrack community. You know, we've had records with Death Waltz in America, and definitely even my solo stuff I put out through Death Waltz as well. So there's a big vinyl collector, horror movie soundtrack fan crossover, and
that's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
You came to the right place.
Yeah.
Or I keep the right place to you. And also, I'm aware that beside the night terror, you were playing with, I don't know how to pronounce it, hairs. I don't know how you.
Airs, yes.
Yeah,
Airs.
here. And I think it became apparent that it had become an important part of your life as well, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and actually that came from touring. The Night Terrors and Airs were on the same label in Melbourne, XO Records, back in the 2009, and we were touring around Europe together. So whenever Night Terrors went on tour, Airs would and Night Terrors would do a leg of the tour together.
Yeah.
And you know, we were similar bands. I mean, obviously Airs is much heavier, almost doom kind of instrumentals. And you know, we're two bands touring around, and we ended up sort of joining each other's bands. So like I joined Airs, and Damien and Laura joined the Night Terrors, and we became one big sort of you know, community of musicians. And we were also running a record label, running a publicity company in Australia, doing tour managing. So we were just really getting involved in the music industry all together.
Yeah.
I mean, they were much more of a goth band than the Night Terrors were.
Well, they're very good, man.
Yeah.
You know, as I say, all the work, and I followed, you know, on your website, all the solo project that you're doing, the other one with other people, and what you're doing it with soundtracks, and it's beautiful. It's very, very well done, man. Your other project is Narcoleptor, right? Who is playing with you there? Is that an EP or a whole album?
I'm collaborating with a classical harpist called Mary Damani, who's a fabulous avant-garde singer and also plays the harp. And the Narcoleptor, we've done one EP. We have a new album that's just about to come out on Nosferatunes here in Melbourne. And it's, I love this new band. It's totally avant-garde. Well, it sounds like, you know, the most horror soundtrack music I've ever done. I would say it's much more horror soundtrack than the Night Terrors. And I just met Mary by coincidence at someone else's gig. Yeah, and the record that we put out last year is actually a recording of the first time we ever played together. So we played at an improvised music night in Melbourne. It's all completely improvised, that record, and it was the first time we ever played together. So just one of those beautiful situations where we just gelled really well together, and the thing that she does works so well with the thing that I do. I get to explore parts of the theremin sound that I don't really explore with the Night Terrors. It's, you know, it's different sonic landscape. There's no drums or guitars, you know, bass guitar, and it's much more dynamic. It's also microtonal, like we sort of move out of normal tuning into unusual sort of anti-tunings quite a lot. She sort of sticks rubbish in her harp and deep tunes it deliberately, and so we're playing in a strange space, and it's really fun. Yeah, she's
I didn't know who he was. That's what I was asking. I mean, the two of you, it sounds very, very, very good, man. Very, very good. You know,
Thanks.
and I only listen to the EP, so you know, I can't wait to hear the album, and it's very good stuff, man.
Yeah, it just came out of nowhere, and you know, we didn't know we were being recorded either. So we played the show, and then they were like, "Oh, we recorded that," and we were like, "Oh, did you?" And you know, it turned out really great. So of course, this happened just before 2020, so we had been able to play, but yeah, we've got big plans for the Narcoleptor. We want to take that all over the world as well.
Is she from Melbourne as well, or is it
Yeah,
from Australia? Yeah, gotcha. You know, with the situation, you cannot, you know, play together. But eventually, I assume that you guys, with all the other projects that you do with the Night Terrors, Narcoleptor, you will continue recording, doing new album, and doing different things at the same time. You know.
Right. Yes.
And then I also look at your website. The other ventures that the Gateway solo project, that also is very, very good, man. I like your stuff, man. So I look every single thing you send me, and feel free to elaborate on how the project came together. You know.
Okay, yeah. Well, the Gateway was actually that came from, I went solo. I started doing solo records in about 2012. The Night Terrors was having a break because some of our members were living overseas and busy with other bands. And, you know, we started the Night Terrors in 1999. So it's quite old. And we decided we would, you know, come back to it when we were all available again. So I was like, I might start playing on my own. And I really enjoyed, you know, the Night Terrors had sort of flirted with electronic music a few times. And I was like, well, maybe I'll now explore that, you know, drum machine and analog synthesizer sequencer, old school analog sequencing concept. And so my first record, Science Fiction, was more of a almost dark wave kind of, you know, early goth influenced thing. And then with the Gateway, I wanted to go straight into party music. I've always kind of liked to, with every record, I like to try and take the theremin into a new place that I haven't explored before. And and I thought, I want to play theremin at clubs. I want, you know, I want a dance record. So actually developed most of that material live, just playing at a lot of parties around Melbourne and around Australia. And lots of house parties, lots of clubs and festivals, and just wanted to see whether it would work to make a dance project for an instrument where you're not allowed to move. So the audience is dancing, but you're not.
That's
and
right.
How to make that work. And in the end, it became much more theatrical with costumes and, you know, lots of stagecraft stuff. And people really liked it. And of course, you know, as I was saying before, with the whole Nosferatu appearance, so I really sort of lean into that with the dance project. And, you know, I get a lot of Voldemort comments. But it makes sense in a way, because it's like you are doing magic. You're moving your hands in the air.
Absolutely.
If you're in a club context where people are partying, maybe some people might be high, then they really like it. So it's a lot of fun. And, you know, the Night Terrors it can be quite serious and, you know, sometimes neoclassical and sometimes rock. And with the Gateway, I was just like, let's just make something fun. I'm not sure if the theremin community really love it. I think that, you know, a lot of the classical thereminists work very hard to try and make the theremin be taken seriously as a serious classical instrument. And I wonder whether they are appreciative of me partying with the theremin. But you know, we put it out with Death Waltz and in America, and it's been fantastic. It's been very well received. So I'm very.
I completely agree. You gotta do what you want. I mean, you learn the instrument, but you want to apply it to different areas. So it's up to you. It's your career, your life. You know, you don't.
Yeah.
You shouldn't care about what everybody else think or does. I mean, you have different projects doing different things, and there's nothing wrong with that. Right? You know?
That's right. And look, all my heroes of music are individualist people, and they you know, they do the records I like are the records where I've never heard it before. I don't want to. We're never going to have a #1 pop hit with the Night Terrors.
That's right. Yeah. But you're making a living. Before that, you did. I don't know how to pronounce science fiction and electric, right? Mm-hmm. How the project came together as well?
Yeah, well, so really that was from, there was a great big goth music revival happening in Melbourne in around 2011, 2012. And I was synth punk and all this people looking at the origins of electronic music and the crossover between dark wave and Italo disco and I was just playing lots of gigs by myself, and at that point I was also like, now that the Night Terrors is having a break, maybe I'll start singing and do some songs with words as well, and just see if I enjoy that, because I don't have the Night Terrors formula, you know, as a restriction. And that was really fun. Much more of a sidestep away from my normal practice. But yeah, it was fun. And you know, I definitely played much more sort of synth punky kind of clubs and more underground venues with that record. That was good.
Got you. As far as going back to the Night Terrors, is there any plans on the making for releasing a full album down the road? These circumstances, you know.
Yeah, actually, we're about halfway through making a new record right now. So Sarah, Lim, and I have been writing for about a year, and we've got heaps of material. So there's definitely a Night Terrors record. I've got one more solo record that's coming out sometime soon, and then the next one will be Night Terrors. Yeah.
I got you, beautiful. You know, keep me posted so I can play your stuff on the radio. People will go crazy.
Okay.
Some people, you know, depend on the community. Some people know your stuff, but I imagine, well, Goblin and Klaus Simonetti, that's sort of well known, so to speak, in Europe and Italy, but they have toured here in the United States, but they are not, you know, that popular. But quite sure, if I begin playing your music in the radio, you know, people are going to start calling you, man.
Fabulous.
That's the idea. With now that you can tour and you know, and I assume that you don't do live streaming. Is now that you have your music on Bandcamp, is helping to sort of, you know, pay the bills in the meantime when you're not touring? Do you have an assistant from the Australian government for the touring musician now that they're beyond their control, they cannot tour? They get a bit of assistance?
I mean, Australian government has always been very good because they know we've only got like 6 towns you can play in Australia, and not that, you know, the money is really to be made in America and in Europe and other parts of the world. So, but you know, right now, obviously, there's no way for us to fly internationally, so we would be waiting. But Bandcamp is fabulous. Like we make money from Bandcamp all the time, and it's really the only thing that we have that generates money. Like Spotify is absolutely terrible. These days, all your music goes up on YouTube, which is actually fine. I don't have a problem with that at all, because I think people discover our music through YouTube and then buy the records. But Bandcamp is great. Like, you know, for people, it's a great place to find new music. People, when we did the Narcoleptic record, all we did was put it on Bandcamp and it sold out. Like, we didn't advertise it, we didn't send it to reviews or anything, just sold out through Bandcamp. But, you know, that's very unusual music. So it showed us that, you know, the situation has changed a lot in the last 10 years. And we've always been lucky to have labels to work with. But I think that, you know, a new artist could really even not worry about that, because people are listening, people are discovering their own music. Yeah.
In terms of the volume, when you say, you know, when you, like yourself, right, or with Electric or Narcoleptor or, you know, the Night Terror, when you guys do a new album, what number are we talking about? You guys put together, you know, you go to a factory and try to cut a deal for like 200 records, 500 CDs, that kind of, what number are you talking about? Oh, higher than that.
Well, usually, I mean, Nosferatu is my label, so the Narcoleptor stuff has been, so we released it through that label, and that's the only one I could really say, because I don't know how many copies the other labels do of our records. But with the Narcoleptor, we keep it small. I mean, it's only like 200 copies because we want it to be collectible.
And then the 200 go fast. Yeah.
And that's it. Yeah, and that's it, and that's fun. I mean, I like collecting records, and I like having one of a small number as well. And you know, the Narcoleptor, you know, we put the whole record up on Bandcamp, everyone can hear it, but to get the vinyl, it's more of a special thing. And I really like running record label because, you know, we put special stuff in with the records. There's a poster in the Narcoleptor record, and the new one has special in there. And I love sending records to people. Actually, one of my friends, Darren Sylvester, who's a fabulous musician and visual artist, told me that he started his own label, and that the most enjoyable thing in his life was getting the orders in and packaging them up and writing a little note to people and sending them. And I completely agree. It's really fun, particularly in lockdown when you're stuck in your house and you're sending packages to people all over the world. So I really enjoy that. So now, Nitros works with labels. I work with labels for my solo stuff, but I like having my own as well, so that I can just do that.
Yeah, I got you. Later on, when that one's debut, definitely I will send you an email because I'm very interested in like you. I'm collecting stuff, so I want to get a copy of everything you have done, autograph and everything. So we'll work out the detail, man. For me, as I told you before, it's very, very important. I need nowadays younger folks, right? They never touch vinyl and they just saw CD and now they download the stuff in the computer. It's not the same thing. I like physical stuff, right? Like reading a book, It's,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, it's very different than reading a PDF document, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%.
You know, go to a concert is very different to listen, put your headphone, drink a beer, and listen to stuff in YouTube. I suppose that if you don't have any money, right, YouTube is kind of the only way. But for me, I want to collect the stuff. I want to open the album, and you are sort of forced to listen to the whole thing, as opposed to you download an album from you whatever XYZ artist, and you listen to 10 seconds, you speed up. Next song. Is
Yeah,
you
yeah,
you move in life. You're moving at a higher speed. That's you gotta
yeah,
smell the roses, like they say here in America.
yeah. Well, I think also making records, you know that you're having a relationship with the listener that is different from,
Absolutely.
some people will be listening to your music on their headphones, on MP3 or whatever. But when you, I think when I buy a record and it's got a beautiful cover and I sit in my, in my room quietly and listen to it, and you really go into that personal space with it, and
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's taking time to enjoy listening. And I think that as we didn't really realize until Back to Zero got reissued that our audience was that audience. We kind of thought our audience was people who came to our shows and drank beer and partied, and had a good time. But really, the bigger audience was the audience at home, listening to on their record players and thinking about the music a little bit more. And it's always surprised me that there are so few bands like the Night Terrors. Like, there's really never really been another band with a theremin as the lead instrument in a rock band. Like, for us, that was the obvious thing to do. Like, and we thought, we're going to, as we travel around the world, we're going to discover 50 other bands like this. And there's been hardly any, and certainly not many that have released albums. And so, that's the thing. You think that you're doing something obvious, and no one else is doing it. So
Yeah, but that's the difference. A lot of people, Miles, and I wanna read a quote that somebody interviewed with a while ago, and you responded. A lot of people have good ideas, but fewer people have put it together and then executing those ideas. Having a good strategy is a bit different, right? So I think you say, if people, I want to read it here, if people start telling that you can do something, you should work even harder at it, because you are probably just around the corner from a great revelation. The same thing with me. When I put the radio together, I was working with other group of people. I said, no, I want to go on my own. I have a strategy. I want to do different. I put one together, and then I put another one together, and then I began doing interviews, and then I put fourth one. I want to launch another 2 by February, and then people began calling me, and now I think the first two artists that I end up emailing, listen, I'm starting, I'm not the BBC, have fewer. People say to me, well, all the big names that you're going after, people would never reply to you or whatever. My first interview with second or so was from people from Genesis.
Yeah, cool, amazing.
And then another guy from Genesis, and then another guy from Toto, and people, were very receptive. It's true that a lot of people were at home because nobody's touring, but they liked the interview. They liked the kind of question that I was asking. I send a file with stuff located so they can put on their Facebook account as well. And people very, 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 people are very, if you're good to people, people are good to you. Let me put it to you that way. And it have been great.
I agree, and you. I mean, you're a fabulous interviewer, and you're actually interested. So many people that we talk to are not that interested.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, I agree. Like what you're talking about here is creating something that's generous. Like these projects that we're doing are generous. They give more than they take. We're not asking our audience to give us stuff. We're saying, here's all of our stuff. And it's this, I think about this a lot, like the gift economy of underground music and DIY music and visual art, and like even the internet. Like people are giving stuff to make people's lives better. And, you know, those of us who make underground music, we're not making money from it. We're definitely not. Like we're keeping our head above water with it, and unless something crazy happens, that's, you know, or unless you do a film or a TV thing, and then obviously there's money there. But like, we're doing it because we think other people might like it, and you know,
right.
It's the enthusiasm for life that is the driving thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said before, for me, my model was I want to be free, right? I'm not asking people for money. Where they want to donate a little bit of money down the road, be like a Patreon system that would be back for. I'm going all the costs. I want to interview every single musician in the world in different areas, and I knew that some music would apply to certain community and some other. So I like from electronic, from Pink Floyd, from Depeche Mode, Coldplay, Peter Gabriel, Genesis, you know, electronic music, Tangerine Dream, your stuff, and I hit an itch. I noticed that people say, "Man, this is interesting. I never even heard about Mal Brown." And then now that I'm going to be, you know, playing the music in the radio with Goblin and Simonetti and all the other guys, you know, that's if I can help, you know, a little bit of you, you know, help you, you helping me, because I obviously when I put a new interview, I send an email to my friend, and some people will buy your music. You benefit because now you know now crazy people in the United States are listening to your music, and it works both ways. You know, as I said before, you know, people help one another, so it's a beautiful thing. And I know your stuff is good. You know, I know your stuff is good, so nobody needs to tell me nothing. The other project was Laser for Eyes, right? Feel free to elaborate on that one.
Yeah, so that was a single that we did. One of the tracks off Spiral Vortex, and we released that before Spiral Vortex, a few years before, on OSCL, which was our drummer Damien Coward's label. That was the sort of the point where we introduced the idea that we were going to be a bit more electronic to the world, and we were like, shit, people don't like this. But you know, it was also, you know, our audience is pretty much open-minded, and yeah, so it was much more aggressive. I think the Night Terrors got a lot more aggressive at that moment, and you know, maybe less about, you know, the beautiful side of it, and a bit more about the, you know, this was when Airs and the Night Terrors had combined into, you know, each other's bands, so there was a bit of Airs influence in there. Yeah, and I think on that EP there's a few songs that are not available anywhere else that were sort of live favorites of ours that didn't quite make it onto records. So and a couple of remixes. So.
Now that I know you mentioned that you own you know, a record label, do companies like I don't know, Waxworks, Varese Ravan, Mondo, one of those probably the top 3 or so in the world, have sort of contact you to see if they can buy your rights to try to, you know, sell it?
Yeah, well, Mondo is Death Waltz and Mondo are the same label now. So Mondo, my records, The Gateway and Science Fiction, are both through Mondo. And then the Night Terrors, they licensed Parva Nocturnus from us and did a special coloured vinyl version of that. So yeah, we have a lot to do with Mondo. And I mean, that's the thing, like when we started the Night Terrors, there wasn't this huge community of horror soundtrack label music, and now it's so big. And I think that I'm very lucky to be able to work with Death Waltz, because they make most of their money from doing reissues of film soundtracks, really big film soundtracks in Mondo. And then that enables them to run the Death Waltz Originals label, which is those of us who are just making music. which is sort of similar, but not attached to movies. And so, you know, that's great. It's a stable place to be releasing records. And yeah, so I mean, we're friendly with all those guys, and you know, I collect all those records. And there's a whole lot of great new labels like Museum of the Occult and like smaller labels where my Death Waltz label mates are often also releasing on these smaller labels. So, you know, everyone's releasing a lot of stuff and it's going in all these different directions. And so there's a real community of weirdos.
I got you. Let's go back to now the film score. It's an area that you are, I don't know how far have you gone into the film score. Have you done some songs and things for a particular director, or it's an area that you want to try to go into as well?
I'd love to do more, obviously. We've just done small short films at the moment for mostly Tasmanian and Victorian, Australian directors.
Yeah.
Some of one of them that we did, Watch Me, which is Briny Kids, a short film. It got put into one of those horror anthology movies, which did really well. And yeah, so just little bits and pieces. But I would love to do more of it, obviously. It's super fun and a totally different way of working. You know, in the night terrors, it's like stacking lots of ideas up. When you do film music, you want to have hardly anything happening. You know, you're serving the scene and trying to express the emotions of the characters and all that kind of thing. So I love that stuff.
Is any particular movie director in Australia or all over the world that you would like to work with? Somebody were to give you a call tomorrow, well, you know, I'm thinking about a movie about this and that, you know, would you like to?
Yeah. Gosh, so many. Like, I couldn't even think of one on the top of my head. Everybody.
But the top one in Australia, what would be?
I'm thinking my friend John Ofterhide is a director. He did this really cool movie about Tasmanian convicts, like a horror movie called Van Diemen's Land. I'd love to work with John. And, you know, I mean, there's a lot of young horror directors in Australia who are fantastic. So I don't know, like maybe Jennifer Kent, who directed The Babadook. I'd love to work with Jennifer Kent as well. And you know, I'd love to work with Lee Winnell, who, you know, has done a whole bunch of amazing stuff. He's from Melbourne as well. Actually, Damien from Airs has another band called Collapse. They did a few songs for Lee Winnell's last movie, Upgrade. And so, you know, it's around us. I suppose I've always been much more focused on making records, and I haven't really pursued it directly, the film thing, but it would be fun. Yeah.
Gotcha. What kind of music do you like to listen to when you are at home, not working, not composing?
I love.
What kind of stuff you like?
I really love the band Messachups. Do you know this band Messachups, a Russian surf band? They are kind of an electronic surf crossover band. My theremin teacher, Lydia Kabina, plays on some of their records.
Yeah.
I like that kind of thing. I actually listen to a lot of old lounge music and to relax. I really enjoy all that old sort of ultra lounge stuff but just a whole range of stuff. Like I collect a lot of ambient synth records. I love 70s. I've been listening to a lot of Julie Tzuki. Do you know Julie Tzuki? She's a fabulous American singer from the 70s. This record called I Am the Phoenix, which I discovered in lockdown, which I fucking love. I listen to a lot of Japanese, 80s Japanese stuff, like the Yellow Magic Orchestra guys and their solo projects. I spent a lot of money on records last year because we were trapped in our houses, so I just bought a lot of records.
How big is your vinyl collection? Thousands, hundreds?
No, it's only just starting. So I've probably got like only about 300, not very many. I'm just at the beginning of my vinyl journey. But
it's like an
yeah.
addiction.
Oh, total addiction, yeah. And I mean, it's terrible because now I've got to the point where I'm starting to buy stuff I've got on CD, on vinyl. That's when you know you're in trouble. Yeah, but like a lot of different stuff. I really love collecting my friends you know, my other horror disco kind of friends' records. Jello Disco, that is a great label. My friend Anthony Mayovi's label.
Yep.
But I DJ that kind of music as well, so I buy a lot of that stuff.
And how does it feel, more like a personal question, how does it feel that your music, with all the different venues that you're working in, resonate with and connect with people?
Oh, it's amazing. And it's always very surprising. And I think, you know, originally when we started the Night Terrors, we didn't expect people to enjoy it necessarily. We were sort of experimenting with it. And the fact that people's reaction to it was always an emotional reaction, and that people would, you know, we used to play gigs and people would come up to the merch table and be like, oh, you made me cry. And we'd be like, sorry, was it really terrible? And they'd be like, no, it was very emotional. And so
Absolutely, yeah.
That's the theremin doing its thing sort of automatically. And, you know, you don't know what your music is like when you make it. Like for you, it seems like the most obvious thing in the world. You're like, oh, right, that idea came through. How obvious? Because it's your idea, or you're the person who gets the idea out into the world. So you never know how people are going to understand it. I think the most valuable comment we ever got was someone who said, thank you for being so weird and still making records, because it encouraged me to be weird and make my weird record. And
that's right.
If that's the legacy that we have, that makes me happy. That's what I want.
For when you guys were touring with the Night Record, the second album, third, in Australia, how many people will go to a particular theater? We're talking about 500, 1,000, 300? How many?
Yeah, like, I mean, it really varies in Australia. Australia is a conservative place, really. And so our music does really well in Melbourne, does really well in Sydney. Yeah, and doesn't do so well in other towns. We do well in Tasmania because that's where we're from. For the Night Terrors, the big place is Europe. Like
Europe, yeah.
We have an amazing time in Europe. We have you know, great time in Italy, especially. We have great time in Germany. We have great time in Spain. It's, you know, what we're doing is really art music. And it references the history of art music, and it references the history of film music and, you know, synth music. And the audiences in America and audiences in Europe are more, you know, they know about that more. And also they just value something different. You know, if in Australia, you don't get that many touring musicians through, but in bigger countries like in Europe and America, you see a lot of music and you get sick of hearing the same thing all the time. And, you know, we're always really, really shocked at how much people get what we're trying to say, even though we have no words in our music. And, you know, it's...
I'm quite sure here in the United States, you guys will do very well because, you know, obviously with 350 million, and also with a wide range of listeners, people tastes and stuff like that, is you always, like myself, right? I'm always looking for new different things, for new artists, for new different type of music in general is very important. So yeah. I enjoy I will enjoy your latest album, as well as I will enjoy the latest album from Peter Gabriel or Coldplay or whatever.
Yeah, you know, yeah. And I think that's different. Like when we went to Europe the first time, we were playing a gig in Germany, and some older people came up to the merch table to buy records and T-shirts from us. Yeah. And you know, people in their 70s, and our keyboard player was like, "Oh, is this for your kids?" And they were like, "No, it's for me."
For me.
You know, like, and it's different in Australia. There aren't so many people who continue collecting music and being interested about new music, you know, as they get older. The culture is different. And so, but I love that about America. I love it about Europe, that people are, you know, they never stop being excited about new music. And particularly the kinds of people who are looking for unusual sounds. Like, then it's a lifelong something called a source of joy for your whole life. And you know, my plan always was, you know, for the second half of my life to get weirder and, you know, make more and more difficult music until, you know, when I'm 80, where it's almost unlistenable. That's my plan.
That's it. That's it. Well, you need to follow up with your plan, man. Well, as far as you as not as a person, but as a musician now, what sort of musicians in Australia you admire, or people over the world?
Musicians that I admire.
Yeah. What people are important to you?
Yeah, I love a band that I discovered this year, which I love, is called Molasses. They're Dutch prog rock band, prog sort of metal band, with this singer, the most amazing singer. She sounds like a female Bruce Dickinson combined with the devil, like just fabulous. I love that stuff. Actually, one of my tracks was on a Roadburn, you know, the festival Roadburn in Europe. They have a Spotify playlist, and they put one of my tracks on there, and I discovered a whole bunch of great music just from being on that. I love, I mean, there are some fabulous other theremin players in the world now. Carolina Eick is a German theremin player. She's amazing, making a lot of great music. Gregoire Blanc is a French thereminist who's incredible and who looks like he's about to release a whole lot of original music. So the theremin world has become much more inspiring to me than it was in the past.
Yeah.
And in terms of local Australian music, there's an awful lot of incredible stuff coming out now. I think that underground music in Australia is really on the rise. So bands like AN, who are a local sort of electronic, sort of dark goth electronic band, they're fabulous. There's a band called None, who are a synth punk kind of thing, who are really fabulous. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm kind of excited about everything.
Yeah. Where is a particular website that you listen for kind of underground new band, you know, playing in Australia, or?
In Australia, yeah, I mean, Triple R Radio, which is Melbourne's community radio, is probably the best place to check out Melbourne bands. They have a bunch of new music shows on that. It's all available on demand. And PBS FM as well in Melbourne. They both, you know, you'll hear the latest Australian music there.
Gotcha. If you have the opportunity to play with any musician in the world, one Australian, one outside Australia, who there will be? Only two.
Okay. Well, we haven't played with John Carpenter yet, so I really want that to happen. And we almost played with John Carpenter a few times. But
really?
Yeah, quite a few times. They were going to bring him out here to play at Dark Mofo Festival, but he doesn't like flying. So they've never quite got John Carpenter here, which means I'm going to have to go to America to play with John Carpenter, but I'm going to do that. And then in Australian act, I would probably the Divinals, even though Chris Amphlett has passed away, but I love the Divinals. I actually did play with the Divinals when I was playing bass in someone else's band at a festival many years ago, but that would be my dream, yeah.
Yeah, man, if you can get a hold of John Carpenter, let me know, because I would love to interview the guy as well.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to get. Plus, you know, he's getting up there on age, so he doesn't fewer events, you know.
I think that John Carpenter, the fact that he's still making records has a lot to do with his kids and his nephew and his son, I think, are in his band.
Yeah.
I mean I've seen footage of the live show. It looks really cool. I just want to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I have only another two questions. So what are your plans for the near future? Any new recording, any gigs, any new touring? What?
Yeah, so I've just made a new record of much softer material. So the Gateway was like party music, and this is like the sort of companion record that's much softer and more like the sort of ballad tracks that are on Back to Zero. Yeah, that's probably the most similar to Back to Zero record that I've made since then. So that will be coming out. I'm not sure exactly when the label wants to put it out. And then The Narcolepta has our album that's finished and you're sitting right here. So we'll be releasing that really soon.
Yeah.
And New Night Terrors is really the main thing. So Sarah and I are, deep in the composition hole at the moment, getting that finished. It's going to be a different kind of thing. We want to get more into the sort of dueling guitar and synth and bass thing, a bit heavier record, but with big, much proggier as well. I think it'll be a double album, just because we've got so much material, and we haven't done a Night Terrors. Like last year was actually our 21st anniversary, and we didn't get to do anything because of the pandemic. So we really want to do something. Yeah.
Where and also where people can buy your music.
Yeah, so milesbrown.com.au. Everything is available there, and there's links to all the other projects and everything. That's the central place.
All right, man. So that was our interview with Miles, and I love your music. Keep on working. Keep on doing all these different projects because that's very different. The Night Terror, the Collector, and keep us on the loop. would like to play your music as much as I can on the radio, the old stuff, the new stuff, and new project that you're putting together, because like you have 10 ideas in your head at the same time, man. So keep us posted, and I will after the interview I will send you the link, and I will send you a follow for your social media account, as well as I'm very interested in buying all your stuff, so I will send you an email and we can work something out there.
Thank you, Claudio, and thank you very much for having me on your show. It's really a pleasure to speak to you.
My pleasure, man. I like your stuff. Yeah. We are different. I don't care what the synonym I like it. Whether you like your stuff or not, I don't know why. I don't understand why people pay, I don't know, 200 million for from Picasso. I don't understand it, but some people do. The same with kind of music. Other people say, man, this is creepy. This guy looks like Nosferatu. I don't care. You like it or you like it, right? So there's a market for everything.
Yeah, that's right. There's plenty of fish in the sea, as they say.
That's really great. Thank you, Miles, again. Have a great day today, man. I appreciate for your time and looking forward to hearing from you, man. Keep up the good work, man.
Very much. All the best, Claudio. Cheers.
No problem. Take it easy, man.